Hello there. I've had a user request to take a look at the PDF reader in the BigMe InkNote Plus, and I've decided to not only film a little bit of that, but also with the Books Tab Ultra C. And part of the reason why I did for both devices is in none of my prior videos do I talk about looking at PDFs. So I figured this would be a good opportunity to look at it in both devices. And there is a clear advantage from one device over the other. And I think that's worth noting. One quick note about PDFs. One of the reasons why I haven't featured them in the past is I really don't work with PDFs. In the course of, at work or at home. And that actually surprised me. When I first started getting into these note-taking devices, I have used PDFs in the past, particularly at work, and I thought that it would be wonderful to kind of mark up PDFs and that sort of thing. And I kind of envisioned myself using these devices for that quite a bit. I guess I overestimated in my mind how often I worked with PDFs, because in the last few years since buying these devices, I don't believe I've received a single PDF that I felt the need to go in and do annotations on. So I just never took advantage of that functionality. So that's kind of the caveat to these videos. I'm going to walk through a PDF that I've downloaded, and that PDF I have in the link in the description in case you're interested. And it's kind of an interesting PDF around color. It's part of a lecture series, so it's worth the read, particularly given this subject matter. But the caveat here is that I'm really almost giving more of a first impressions. I mean, I certainly played with the PDF functionality prior to recording the video and trying to get familiar with it. But I'm sure there's all sorts of functions and settings that maybe I should have done that I didn't, and it's just because of my unfamiliarity with that process. So just take this video as more of a tour, and my opinions as much more of a grain of salt, because it's not something that I do a lot of, and therefore I'm quite naive about. So I gave it a good college try, and hopefully it's good enough at least to have a sense with each device about what options are available, and how you can navigate through documents, etc. So that's the hope. We'll see how well that worked, and we'll do a couple demonstrations, and then we'll come back and we'll close it out. All right, so let's take a look and see how the BigMe InkNote Color Plus handles PDFs, and we're actually showing a color PDF in this particular case. Now, prior to recording this video, I did connect this device to my computer, and then I just simply dragged and dropped into the Documents folder the PDF that we'll be going over today. And that PDF actually I pulled from the internet, and the link to that is in the description of the video. So you can check that out directly if you'd like. But let's go into the device and see how it looks. So we'll go ahead and come out of standby mode. And then we're going to click on Storage here. And then we're going to go into Dock here, as like so. The most recent file is on top, and of course these are all the other files that are available. I'll go ahead and click on that. It'll give me the option of what I want to open that in. I'm going to choose the default XReader app. And here we go. So there is the PDF file. Obviously this is too small of a file to be able to read on the 10-inch screen. So we'll make some adjustments so that it is more legible. First off, let's start off by rotating it. I've already set the device so it will rotate. Like so. Obviously it just got worse, so we'll need to account for that. I'm going to go ahead and just tap on the middle of the screen, like so. And there's a number of options. Let's kind of walk through those really quickly. There's this Contents option here, and if you click on that, you can, if there's any table of contents, it'll be listed here. Any bookmarks will be listed. Any annotations or handwriting, it'll list those pages, and you can quickly jump to those. We have a little progress bar, which is actually right here, and there's a handful of options there as well, which I won't go over. We'll return to format. Contrast is here. Currently the contrast is set in the middle. If I set that to 0, everything is completely washed out, And if I set it to the maximum, everything's back. The text is nice and dark, but the color image is a little too dark to discern. So we'll go ahead and go into the middle, which gives us a nice balance of the two. Maybe go over one more. Yeah, we'll go with that. Then there's the navigation. And this has an option called reflow. I don't know too much about that, so I won't say much about it. And then you could do a split view, and there's a number of options, and they're all indicated there. But let's go back to format, where there are a number of things that we can do to make this fit better into the image. And we will choose to fit it this way. So we'll go ahead and click on that and go back to the document. And as you can see, it's much more legible now. This is one of the features that both this device as well as other devices that are 10-inch have, is to be able to go into landscape mode. And I really think if done properly, it does negate the need for a larger screen, like a 13-inch screen or what have you, because you are able to read the documents just fine. There obviously are still advantages to using a larger screen, but you lose a lot. You lose a lot in weight, you lose a lot in portability. So I think the 10-inch screens strike the right balance when you can manipulate your document in a way that makes it easier to work with. Now, navigation in the document is predominantly on this device through tapping. So as I tap each page, it advances, much like with a book. And I'm moving forward on this side. Go ahead and refresh that image. And then I can move backwards like this. Now we're getting some ghosting here. I could have the option to automatically refresh with each tap or every few taps, or I could simply manually refresh. In this case, I have it. So if you swipe up, it'll refresh the screen. One of the things that the InkNote is not great on is it's not great on pinch to zoom or to kind of manually moving the page. And let's go ahead and try to do a demonstration of that. Let's see if I can get this page to move. There, we actually went the wrong way. So it's not as responsive as I'd like it to be. And it's also jumping. So instead of having an animation to scroll through the document, is jumping ahead. And you get situations like you have up here where the image is cropped off. So if I wanted to center the image in the screen, it's very difficult for me to do that. So it didn't register that. Tried it again. Let's try it a third time. Okay, that time it finally worked. Pinch and zoom is similarly a frustrating experience, which I won't demonstrate here. But clearly the best way to navigate, and really the only effective way to navigate, is by tapping, and that is quite reliable. Now, as you can see on the tray here to the side, you have all the pen options and eraser option that you would have in the Notes app. And if I get rid of that, like so, I can bring it back by clicking in the middle and going up, and it returns. There's also a settings and search feature within this as well. Let's just do a quick demonstration. Right now I'm on the red pen. That's the ballpoint pen. So we'll go ahead and write something here at a bit of an angle. So you have to forgive me for that, but there's the writing. Now, this is automatically saved. So if I get out of this document and then I reattach this device to my computer, then I take that file, the exact same file I brought in, now has these notes with the InkNote. It saves over the original file. So if I put this back onto my computer, I will see my annotations in the file. Now, one last thing I want to make an observation of, and that's the highlighter. As some of you who have seen my other videos may know, I'm very impressed by how the InkNote Plus handles the highlighter within the Notes app. Sadly, that's not the same in the Reader app as it is in the Notes app, and the highlighting function is not nearly as good. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. I've got a yellow highlighter and I'm on 2-point font. Did I select that? There we go. And let's go ahead and highlight like so. So much like the Books device, the highlighter becomes a drawing highlighter as opposed to the dash line in the note-taking app. And then it brings up this kind of annotation menu. And if I click on this T, then it simply does the highlighter. You can see that it's a foggy highlighter. I think that changes a little bit if I refresh the screen. It's a little bit better, but I just don't like the cloudy nature of the ink. Having said that, if you bring that over to the computer, it does look like more of a standard highlighter. Now, what's interesting about the highlighter is to get rid of it is different than it is to get rid of anything that you write. So if I wanted to get rid of this hello, I would click on the eraser or use my Bluetooth function, and then I would just circle it and it's gone. Go ahead and refresh the screen there. The same cannot be said of a highlighter. So if I circle it, it's still there. So what you need to do instead is you need to click on the highlighter, and then you can get rid of it. And unfortunately, you have to click on the second icon, and then you can delete it. So a little bit clunky in its implementation, but once you can get used to it, then it flows fine from there. So that, in a nutshell, is the functionality of using PDFs on the InkNote Plus using their native e-reader software. It's decent. I really wish, as I said earlier, that you could kind of scroll through the document better. Navigation is very limited, but beyond that, it's very functional. You can certainly see the colors. Let's go ahead and go through, and we'll look at various pages before we stop here. We've seen that image. Okay, you can see the color lines there. Color lines again. We'll have some graphs coming up here. That's another colored line, although it's a little hard to see. Here we go. So let's refresh that. There's an example of a colored graph. It looks pretty good. It comes out fine. All this, by the way, is without any front lighting. Let's go ahead and select that, see how that affects the visuals. It's unusually difficult. There we go. I've got cold lighting on halfway. Not bad. But I think a little bit limited. It's definitely a functional PDF reader and annotator. You can definitely do work on this, but just know that it has its limitations. All right, so now that we've taken a look at the InkNote Plus, let's take a look at the Books Tab Ultra C. And I think we'll see a lot of similar features in the e-reader and a lot of similar functionality, but then there's a lot of critical differences as well. So first off, we're again find ourselves in standby mode. And I've gone ahead and, just like the InkNote, I connected the device via USB cable, dragged the file into the appropriate folder. They worked exactly the same as the InkNote Plus. Very easy. The one difference is if when you export your file, the original file that you load onto the device remains unchanged. And all your notes and annotations and what have you are actually put into a separate file. That file can also be dragged and dropped off of your device onto the computer, when you hook up your USB cable, but it's just they do it in a different file where the InkNote alters the original file. I'm not sure which process is better, but I just want to point out that they do them quite differently. Let's go ahead and get out of standby mode, and we're going to go ahead and go into library like so. And there is our PDF. So here, instead of just a list, they have graphical images, which is nice. Let's go ahead and click on that. Okay, so now we're looking at it in portrait mode. We're going to go ahead and flip over into landscape mode, just as with the InkNote. Okay, And let's go ahead and click on that. And very similar series of options as we saw before. You have this table of content option, which is empty, but would include any bookmarks, annotations, or handwriting. Okay, exactly. Here's your progress bar. I mean, these icons are identical to what we saw in the BigMe device. We'll skip formatting. We go to contrast. We have more options here, and I haven't played much with these options. But you can see last time we had a watermark bleaching, and we had a contrast, and here it has some other options, which I won't be going through. We have navigation here, and this actually has multiple different types of modes. Reflow was the only mode that the InkNote has. This device has a few more. And then there's split view functionality as well, and this is pretty similar, not identical though, to what we saw with the InkNote. But let's go back to the format. This is also a familiar looking screen, and we're going to go ahead and crop like this. And pretty snappy, and turns into a readable PDF. Much like with the InkNote, if I tap on this, it navigates further. Colors seem a little crisper in this file. We still need to refresh here as we did with the InkNote, but it looks better when you do. Okay, so let's take a look at one of I think is probably the best advantage with the PDF reader. So let's say I want to put these images in the center of the screen. So with this, I can, whoops, there we go. I can pinch and zoom and manipulate it in theory. There we go. So it's in the middle of the screen. So not perfect, as you saw. I kind of fumbled around a little bit, but some of that is user error and unfamiliarity with the nuances of the devices. But you can see that unlike the InkNote, which really the only real navigation you could do effectively is doing the tapping back and forth, here pinch to zoom is viable, as well as the tapping. So a little bit nicer in that regard. Okay. Over here on the side is the tray for the pen. And there's also more features here as well. Let's go ahead and click on that pen. There we go. There's the pen tray. And we've already got the red there. So if I can do a little writing here. Okay, there's a little handwritten annotation. It works great. Again, when you bring those over into your computer, those carry on, in this case, into a different file they've created, but nevertheless, it's all there. And it looks great. There's a lot more options you'll notice over here, including how to export the file. So it's a little more functional, as well as being a little bit easier to navigate. Go ahead and a little bit awkward in terms of how the pen process works. You can start off here on the side, which is fine. Then you click it, and then it becomes this tray, and then you got to click it again to become another tray. So one of the difficulties is if you have a lot of features, then sometimes that takes more clicking, so it's a little bit of a give and take. Let's go ahead and do a highlighter, which I believe is this guy? Nope. The marker. Okay. And we'll go ahead and go with a yellow and see what that looks like. Okay. So here you simply draw out your highlighter. That's different than the InkNote where you drew it out and then you had to press another button. Here you just draw it. And so you could erase it as well. So now I can click the eraser button and it goes away. Let's go back to that. Now, as you know, my big complaint, I don't like a cloudy highlighter. However, If you refresh the screen in the reader, okay, maybe I don't have it set up to refresh on a swipe. Oh, that's it. It just refreshed. Okay. Then it's not nearly as cloudy upon refresh. So let me draw this again so you can see the contrast between the two. There we go, right there. See the difference there? So this is what it looks like when you draw it, and then this is what it looks like when you refresh. So much more acceptable upon the refresh. And this is better. The highlighter function here is better than it is in the note-taking app. Just like with the InkNote, the highlighter in the note-taking app is better than in the reader. Well, not just like, they're the opposite. But interesting dichotomy between the two devices there. But looks much better on refresh. So overall, I think that this is just an overview. There's all sorts of nuances to the functionality to these readers that I just don't know very well. But these are kind of the basics of how these operate, and I think it's pretty clear that the Tab Ultra C does a much better job of handling annotations and particularly handling navigation of PDF documents. The InkNote Plus is a perfectly acceptable one, although I just think that the ability to navigate within the file is a lot better with the Tab Ultra C. But there may be certain features that I don't understand that if I use them, they would make them easier to navigate. Don't consider this the be-all and end-all opinion of these devices. These are just my first impressions of these functionalities. So that concludes my demonstration for this video. I am sure there are a number of people that watch this video and were screaming like, just turn on this setting or just do this. And if that's the case with you, please put that in the comments. I'm definitely open to learning more about these readers and how they can be used to be functional for doing annotations. But if you approach it like someone who's fairly new and just looking at the functionality and the ease of use, I did find the Boox device to be ultimately the most rewarding of the two. And again, it's mainly because of the navigation abilities of the Boox device versus the InkNote. Both are more than capable of showing PDF files in a very readable fashion. Both can navigate page by page just fine. It's just the Boox had much more of a pinch to zoom, and you could do more animations in moving the PDF image than you could get away with the InkNote Plus. There were also more features with the Boox as well. Whether those are any good or not, I have no idea. But clearly, if my focus was on working with PDFs and without knowing any more about the functionality of the two readers or what third-party app readers might be available, I think the Boox is the device that I would gravitate towards because it just seems like it was easier to work with the files in the way that I would want to work with them. Although both handled the annotations perfectly well, and most of the functionality appears to be equal between the two. Anyway, I hope this was helpful, and again, any comments, anything I did wrong, please let me know. Any questions or anything else you want me to explore in the future, let me know that as well. Hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time.